Welcome to Healthcare IT Today. I'm John Lynn, together with my colleague and friend, Colin Hung. The world of technology and healthcare ever-changing in new and novel ways, and that's why we love this stuff. So join us as we discuss the latest healthcare and health IT news meshed together in new ways, which help generate ideas and new perspectives. Plus, we'll have a little fun along the way. And today we'll be doing a topic roulette where fate will choose the topics. And be sure to follow the show on social media at the hashtag HITSM and our personal accounts at TechGuy and at Colin_Hung. Plus, check out our 17 years of health IT blog content at healthcareittoday.com. Do you like putting your fate of your life in the hands of a dice?
Well, I mean, you live in Vegas, John, not me. So I should be asking you that question. But no, I mean, this will be fun. And we're letting fate decide what we're going to talk about. Today, we are recording this episode on Gary Gygax's day, which, he was the creator of Dungeons and Dragons, for those that you don't know. And the traditional game is played with these weird number-sided dice. And so we've got 10 topics, and right here in my hand, for those watching on the video, I've got a D10, or a 10-sided dice for us to roll to determine which topic we're going to talk about.
That was a really nerdy intro, Colin. I think a lot of the IT people will like that.
It was a really nerdy intro, wasn't it? But yes, I remember back in the day, these were like, if you had a set of these, that was it. That was the thing, right? So
we should make more decisions in healthcare with a 10-sided dice.
There you go. Yeah, we should make more decisions this way. We should make more. No, but I'm excited for this. This will be fun. We got some pretty interesting topics, and we'll put the actual topics into the show notes so people can see we actually did have 10 chosen, and we're randomly going to let this die tell us which one we're going to talk about.
Sounds good. Let's see what the first one is.
Let's see what the first one is. Here goes the roll. Here we go. It is number 5. So topic number 5 is Cerner and Oracle Health. Interesting.
Wow. Well, I'll lead off on this. I think we're in for a change. And I think, it's the best example of that is that it's called Oracle Health Conference next month for the user conference. So that shows you how much Oracle is putting their imprint on Cerner, and the Cerner brand is going to be gone after this year, I think, for the most part. So that's the big first step.
Yeah, as a marketer, I can't disagree with you. I am totally with you on that all signs are pointing to a total integration of Cerner into the Oracle family. And I don't think it's a bad thing necessarily. I think it's just to me, it's a marketing thing. I don't really see this as any indication of, improvements or degradation in their solution. I don't think that's
not
what
a product
this really
change.
Yeah. But yeah, I agree with you. I think what's making the news is it's very clear they're pushing Oracle Health. And let's be honest, even before they bought Cerner, Oracle did have a lot of health applications and health technologies to bring to bear. So in some ways, it's actually a pretty good news that the entire portfolio is now being rolled together. And at least for me, my hope is that this name, hopefully, if it comes true, this name change will actually bring that portfolio closer together.
Well, and the big change to watch too is that the DoD seems to be on schedule with the rollout of their Cerner implementation, I guess Oracle Health implementation now. So that was good news because Oracle Health had been hammered by the VA, who hadn't had such good results. So the question is, will this DoD news kind of temper it and say, well, it's the VA that screwed up, and that's the organization that has problems. The DoD did just fine. So is it the VA the problem, or is Oracle Health the problem? And Oracle's going to take some egg on the face for sure, regardless. But I think that was finally some good news for the Oracle Health people, is that the DoD has been quite successful. And they came out with some recent numbers, KLAS did, as far as EHR vendors, acquisition of hospitals, new hospitals, loss of hospitals, some information like that. And Oracle did show some growth in hospitals with the Cerner solution. And many people ask the question, though, was that mostly DoD? How many other ones are doing it? The other one I would ask is it international? which when you look at the Oracle Salesforce, it's one of the most international Salesforce that exists, that has relationships in every country and every hospital and health system throughout the world. So, that's a huge opportunity for Cerner, I think, that really like even companies like Epic can't compete with because they don't have that global Salesforce.
Yeah, one of the things that surprises me, just on this topic of Oracle and Cerner, is actually how little they've been in the news since the acquisition, right? Like a lot of times, what you'll hear after a big acquisition like this is, executive shuffles, mass exoduses, culling of product lines, and canceling of contracts. Like you kind of expect that to hear these kinds of things, and I got to tip my hat to Oracle. Like for this most part, they've stayed out of the news. Like nothing major has really come through. I mean, we have some change in leadership and we've had those changes, but it's nothing like earth shattering, right? And
yeah,
at
a
least
few buildings have been sold in Kansas City, but that seems reasonable considering how many offices Oracle has.
right. But it's not like Oracle came in and just said, oh, guys, we're going to can this product line because we're going to roll everyone over to here and we're going to integrate this and you're going to replace that. I mean, I'm sure that's happening like slowly and maybe more in the background, but they've done a pretty good job to keep themselves out of the bad news category, at least in terms of the press.
Yeah, that's fair. And it'll be interesting to see how it progresses, right? How does this trickle down to the end users? Because we have seen some executive departure. And the question is, where will Oracle invest in the product? And will they continue to invest in the product and be able to roll out the features that are needed? I look at some other EHR vendors like ECW and how they're integrating generative AI and those types of features deeply into their product. Is Cerner or Oracle Health going to do that? They should be able to. Oracle has how many AI people, available to them, but will they? And will they do it in a way that actually is conscious of the needs of the provider users? That's going to be interesting to see. Or will we see a slowdown where they haven't invested because they're dealing with so many other things?
Yeah, no, I agree. I like what you're saying, and there'll definitely be a company that's interesting to keep tabs on over the next few months.
Yep.
Let's get on to the next topic, John. Let's
All right.
roll the dice again.
Topic 2. Let's see
Topic
what it
2.
is.
And that number is topic number 8. Oh, look at that. I rolled an 8.
Patient
experience. One of my
Colin's
favorite topics. That was not a plant. I have my other camera. I'll show that I actually did roll an 8. Yeah, patient experience, always a great topic to talk about. I think sadly, of course, it never gets enough attention, never gets enough funding. But I think one of the things that I've been reading about, writing about a lot more is a big focus being put on the intake side and the patient acquisition side. And it's been a good outcome, but for sort of not a reason that you would think. The reason why there's been a lot of movement in this area, in my opinion, is because hospitals and healthcare organizations have been struggling to get patients in the door. And one of the easiest ways and one of the best ways to improve that is to improve your intake process. So I'm talking about, finding a physician matching. I'm talking about, booking an appointment online and getting a hold of someone, chatbots, all these kinds of technologies are things that I've certainly heard of more and more people embracing and adopting, which overall helps the patient experience.
Yeah, I take a dimmer view on this. So no shocks there, but it's challenging because we see pockets of improvement. Like you said, the online self-scheduling has been embraced by a lot of organizations and made the experience better. But my trouble with all of this topic is that the system itself is so dysfunctional and disjointed and disconnected that can we create a great patient experience, for someone? And I, it's kind of like I've said with EHR. Everyone's like, Apple should create an EHR. And I'm like, can Apple create a great EHR? When you look at the burdensome regulation and reimbursement requirements, is this even possible? Right. And so I feel the same when it comes to patient experience and especially when it comes to like patient navigation of the health system. Because you think about how disconnected it is for someone who has problems that cross multiple chasms. Sure, we treat a cold just fine, right? We can treat allergies just fine. We can treat a broken arm just fine. We can, these isolated things we do just fine. But when something crosses those chasms, right, where it's a respiratory issue and a gastro issue and whatever, right, like, and it has some other symptoms that aren't quite clear either, like, how do we coordinate that? And sadly, primary care is not doing that in a good way, at least for the most part. I think that's why people are turning to concierge medicine, to direct primary care, is because there is the hope that they will do something like that. So I guess that's where I feel like patient experience is falling short. Sure, pockets of improvement on patient experience. We're turning off the monitor so it's not ringing at 3 a.m. so they can sleep, right? I mean, we're doing stuff like that. But when you talk about the comprehensive patient experience across multi-specialties, I think it's just a hard nut to crack.
Difficult to argue with you, John. I would agree. I mean, overall, I think patient experience still leaves a lot to be desired, right? Like, and you're right. We have made progress in certain areas, but overall, I mean, we still got a long way to go. And I go back to something that Dr. Boise said to me at Qualtrics, right? Do we love patients as much as brands love their customers? And the answer that she gave, which was very insightful, was no, not at scale. Individually, I think we do. I think doctors care, nurses care. I think that at an individual level, we do try to do our best when it comes to patient experience, but collectively as a system, we just don't do it at scale yet. And I think that's your point. We've got that pocket approach. We really haven't taken that comprehensive approach. But I'm encouraged. And overall, I'm a bit more positive because I'm encouraged at least by the front end being fixed, and making that a lot easier, and finding a doctor is a lot easier now than it was before, and matching them based on more than just availability, right? I want a doctor who's seen, people like me before, treated, people like myself before. You can now do those searches. That to me was unheard of 2 years ago, right? So I think we're making progress in those zones. And so overall, though, I think, we've got a lot of work to do, but I am encouraged.
Yeah, I think there's also the element of accessibility of communication that's improving it. So, before, what would you do? You'd call into the nurse line to get your question answered, hoping that they'd maybe ask the doctor. Now you can send it as a secure message and often get a reply from a doctor, right? And so I think there's some accessibility things that are helping with some of the process. But it's a challenging thing to educate a patient on what's next when you're talking about multiple comorbidities, right? And so I think that's where you do need a relationship with the doctor and a communication channel with the office to be able to solve a lot of the patient experience problems that happen, because they go into the doctor's office and then they go home and they're kind of on an island wondering what do I do next? Am I supposed to wait for a call? Am I supposed to call back? Am I supposed to look at the portal? What is the right path for treatment? Do I continue the treatment? And so I think opening up these lines of communication is a big step in the right direction, that saves us having to call into that nurse's line and sit on hold and all of those things. So in that regard, I think the patient experience is getting better as well.
Yeah, no, agreed. And you and I both know lots of companies that play in this space, of course, right? We got companies like Tiger Connect, and we got people like Seamless MD, and people like Healthwise, and people who kind of fill this gap and void of basically keeping people from having to call into a call center to get that information. It's all forwarded to you via text message, via email, via the portals. They do a pretty good job of that, and you're right. I mean, the good news is we've got technologies to solve it. Now it's just a matter of making sure it gets deployed more widely.
Yeah, and maybe the AI to answer it and to
There you go.
prioritize it.
There you go. More of that. Hey, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to Healthcare IT Today with John Lin and Colin Hung. Today we're doing topic roulette, where we're letting this D10 choose the topic for us. So, John, we've talked about two very interesting topics so far, of course, Cerner Oracle, and now we've just spoken about patient experience. Let's let the dice choose topic number 3. And that topic is number 1.
Oh,
look at that.
Topic for a reason: artificial intelligence. Is there any health IT product that's not an AI product? I'm trying to think. I think pretty much everyone I've seen has been trying to implement something.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunately or fortunately one of these cases where if you don't have AI somehow incorporated into your product roadmap or your marketing, people kind of look at you funny right now.
It's true. And I mean, I guess in some ways it's a good thing because AI can benefit any solution and could potentially benefit it. Sometimes there's some companies trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. And you're like, did you really need to do that? No, but hey, I get where you're coming from. But yeah, I mean, I think, the blowing up of artificial intelligence has been pretty impressive. And ChatGPT has just enlivened the minds of people in a way that which is shocking and surprising and has been exciting because it has made AI and the related technologies feel like something that's doable now rather than, oh yeah, one day we could do that. And so I think that's what's cool about it. And I think nothing is clearer. Like I said, every health IT company is incorporating some sort of AI into their solution. But when you look at like the pure AI solutions for ambient clinical voice, which is one of my favorite areas, that is accelerating massively and quickly and is solving a massive problem. We still need to get the cost down, I think, for it to really be as impactful as we'd like it to be across all of healthcare. But I think that is still one of the most exciting areas and most interesting areas that's going to solve a lot of the problems with burnout that physicians have as far as the documentation burden that they suffer from.
No doubt. There's huge potential of AI, also huge, there's equal downside risk, right? Improperly implemented AI can cause problems at a scale that we've never seen before, right? I borrow that quote a little bit from Reggie Townsend over at SAS. He basically said in a speech, not too long ago that with AI, we now have the capability of creating problems at a scale we've never seen as a human race. And that can mean, everything from the doomsday scenarios of what we see in like Terminator movies, but also smaller than that, right? Like, because you just even look at something like ChatGPT, it's consuming data and information that's available on the web. Well, what happens when a lot of that information on the web is incorrect? Maybe not maliciously, but just incorrect. And is that AI then is going to pick that up and incorporate it into answers, therefore perpetuating that error and that mistake? That's something that we're now just sort of waking up to the reality of, oh yeah, the tool could do that, right? And so what kind of cautions or precautions are we going to put in place to prevent that? What was interesting for me in this topic of AI, two recent things happened. One, we had that big announcement from President Biden that, around this, a bunch of companies got together and said, we're going to agree to be responsible in the use of AI and voluntarily adhere to some of these rules and guidelines that came out of it. I mean, we all can kind of scoff at it a little bit, of course, it's voluntary, but at least now we've got a starting point to say, oh, what is good AI versus not responsible AI? And so there's at least a framework that people can begin to look at and go, oh, okay, I need to start doing these things. So even though I don't think it has a lot of teeth, and I'm not really sure how many companies are going to adhere to it, but at least there's some movement around what's good and what's not good. There's a line now starting to be drawn in the sand, and I think that's significant. And I expect the same from a lot of companies in healthcare. I fully expect within the next year we're going to get the healthcare equivalent of this. Where is AI? What's proper use of AI in healthcare, what's good and what's bad? I think that's going to be defined. So, that's one piece of news in the AI front that I found pretty interesting this week.
Yeah, and it's fair. I mean, doctors have worried about Dr. Google for a long time and patients going to Dr. Google. Well, Dr. ChatGPT is going to be even more interesting, right? Like, and doctors have to embrace it to some degree and understand how to navigate it because patients are going to come in with this sort of analysis of their condition, of their symptoms. So, Dr. ChatGPT is going to be real. It is real. Many people are using it today to ask questions about whatever their symptoms they're experiencing. So I think we just have to navigate it. But I think on the ethical side, the thing that I like most about this is that in technology, we often implement technology and then say, oh, what are the implications? And it feels like now we're at least asking the implications at the front end, right? And we realize there are going to be ethical implications. There's going to be diversity impact, right? Depending on the data set that's being used. There's all sorts of questions that we are aware of and we're asking at the front end rather than asking, oh, just implement it and let's talk about those issues later. And so I guess that's where this feels a little different than maybe past technologies. I think some companies won't. They're going to go headfirst into it and say, screw those ethical issues or other things. And so we're going to have to think about that and see the impact of that. But I think at least there are a lot of people saying, what is the impact of this and how should we be using this? And what is the right way to use this data so that we have the right impact and that we're not discriminating against people just because the data is not there, or what does that even look like?
Just talking on that use case, I was just on a webinar literally yesterday that was hosted by Decimal.Health, UC Davis, NTT Data. Our good friend Lisa Esch was on it, but also Chris Boyer, who, by the way, hosts an amazing podcast, which you should check out, Touchpoint Media, along with his cohort, Reed Smith. But he was talking about how they're using ChatGPT to help patient engagement. So back to the topic we were just talking about before, how they have not ChatGPT, it's a ChatGPT-like tool. So first of all, don't misquote me. They're not using a publicly open API. They're using something that's private and closed, but they're using generative AI to help build correspondence for patients to better motivate them to engage and do the things that the docs want them to do, which to me is a perfectly fantastic use of AI, right? So now they're able to personalize at a level that they've never been able to before, because before they had to manually craft these, right? But now using some technology, they can build more personalized correspondence, some personalized outreach, and it's making a difference. It's just anecdotal for now. There's no numbers or anything, but he's very encouraged by this. And I'm certainly very encouraged by that type of use case, because I think that, to me, is a perfectly great use case for healthcare for this type of generative AI. It doesn't really get into the clinical side, right? And all the ethical issues there and potential traps. It's just, hey, like, we can use this to do something at scale we've never been able to do before.
And I love that part. Like, you even look at remote patient monitoring. Can we scale remote patient monitoring to the scale that it needs to without AI? And my answer is no. We have to have technology like that to scale. So I think that's the power.
Awesome. All right, let's get to our final topic here with the dice, John. And that number is going to be topic number 3.
RPA. Wow, kind of an extension of the artificial intelligence. The biggest area I see RPA happening is in revenue cycle. I think we see it all over the revenue cycle, and using the robots to do a lot of the work with revenue cycle has shown just tremendous impact. We saw that at HFMA. All these companies that we were talking to, FinThrive was working on different RPA solutions. Pretty much every company at HFMA was talking about how do we use RPA to enhance the revenue cycle solutions that we're offering. So that's the area I see it being used the most.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, RPA is interesting because to me, it was sort of this orphan right out there before the big wave of AI came through. And then all of a sudden, when that wave of AI came through, all of a sudden RPA got a lift as well, because
it was
I think, yeah, well, it was not that it was never useful. I just think acceptance of it and use of it, people go, oh, this makes sense. And when it got into the mainstream of consumers' minds, RPA then became it sort of, because it had some biases against it too, like, oh, you're gonna automate these processes. How do I know it's doing a good job? They were complex to set up. They've come a long way, and I agree with you. I think the one area that I hear about RPA the most is in the rev cycle side. There's a lot, as we know, there's a lot of repetitive processes there. There's a lot of processes that don't need a human being to do, and they can instead manage the exceptions. So yeah, very encouraged to see companies like FinThrive and others, really push this technology forward. And yeah, I think some people could maybe confuse it a little bit with AI, and I don't think that's a bad comparison. And I think people go, hey, it's AI, but that's fine. Really, it's robotic process automation. And that's all about, improving the workflow, which we're all for, especially on that, on the revenue cycle side.
Yeah, I was talking to Interbridge, who does a lot of RPA, and they had an interesting comment about, we all think our process is so unique that it can't be RPA'd. that it can't be, optimized and automated. And he's like, we've pretty much found that that's not true. That there's, sure, every process could be its own little snowflake, but all of those snowflakes could be automated to handle this process. The other area I see RPA being implemented a lot is in faxes. Healthcare still gets all these inbound faxes, inbound documents, and using RPA to categorize the document, to understand the document, of course, layering on some AI to understand which patient's for, those types of things, but then using the robotic process automation to say, oh, is this a lab result, or is this a pharmacy prescription, or is this a patient record, or whatever it might be. Using the technology and the automation just saves so much time and improves the accuracy of the person who has to go through those faxes and categorize them and make sure they're routed to the right place.
I love it. I love that we're applying RPA to an older technology like
faxes. Tell me the truth, Colin.
Yeah, I love faxes. I have one over. No, I'm kidding. I don't have one over there. No, but you're right. I mean, again, RPA should be playing a bigger role in healthcare, but hasn't yet. And this is one of the side benefits of the AI wave, is that I think we're going to see more RPA emerge. And also, I think, let's be honest, I think RPA has always been there, and I think maybe now we're sort of labeling it better, because I think there's been a lot of automation, right? Whether you called it macros or whether you call it something else in the past, these have been there. Now they're just given a nice umbrella label that we can all rally behind.
I think the challenge too is many organizations just have so many projects to work on.
Yeah.
So it's like, how does RPA or these other solutions, how do they rise to the level of the attention that it needs? And so I think that's the challenge as a CIO is really, I remember when they implemented a EHR, they said we have 5,000 tickets. Where do I start? And some of these tickets are a 1 hour project and some of them are a 6-month project, and how do you prioritize that, let alone the thousands of other systems that you have that you could implement to improve your organization? That priority is what makes a CIO's, job challenging, and also makes what a great CIO is when they're able to kind of manage that and prioritize that.
Well, and that brings us to the end of this episode, John. So thank you for this D10 and the randomness. This was actually a lot of fun. We should probably do this again sometime.
Yeah, definitely.
Hey, listen, thanks to all of you who tuned into this episode of Healthcare IT Today. You can find more details about our show by checking out the programs page on healthcarenowradio.com. And please share your voice and engage with the community at healthcareittoday.com and on social media using the hashtag HITSM. I'm Colin Hung, along with my friend and health IT collaborator, John Lin. Thanks for listening, and have a great week.